Good morning, Devika Brij. Welcome to WAOK.
Thank you for having me, Angela. Nice to be here with you today.
Absolutely. So, you are the CEO of Bridge the Gap, a career advancement expert, author, and speaker. And I understand that you help underrepresented professionals apply strategy to career development and you help companies to unlock potential for their workforce. Tell me how you do that.
Yeah, so our company is a learning and development, talent development firm. And so corporations hire us to come in and develop their talent as a whole, but there's a huge focus on underrepresented talent. That's our specialty. But
Mhm.
we actually work with companies to curate the experience for their employees. So we are firm believers that lived experiences matter, and they actually impact the way that you are able to not only show up in the workforce, but the opportunities that you're able to attain based on how you show up. But we also have to take into account, societal challenges that actually impact the workplace. And so while we're developing talent and ensuring that professionals and leaders are equipped to grow professionally, access opportunities that they want, and build the careers that they desire, we also, partner with organizations and corporations to offer kind of a robust educational platform to ensure that they're helping their employees win, considering these different factors that are not often a part of the equation.
So, are these underrepresented employees almost always people of color?
Yes, people of color, first and second gen immigrants, which is a different experience in itself, right? And then women as well. We work across all, demographics and all employees, but our sweet spot and where we really, really thrive, just because we're so passionate about underrepresented groups, are people of color and women.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's people of color, especially when people of color notoriously always have to be 10 times more qualified than their counterparts? And but yet we always see instances where people who are far less qualified are the ones in charge, probably in charge of the people that they're less qualified than. How does
Yes.
that work? Yeah.
Yeah, so we know, just based on, systemic racism, bias, all of those things exist, right? I don't think we have to dive too much into that conversation because we
Right.
know it exists, we know how prevalent it is. But also, when we look at the experience for people of color, even for women, especially women of color, there's typically a challenge around self-advocacy that is stemmed from upbringing and culture and then lived experience as well, not only professionally but in the personal aspect as well. And so when we take those experiences and here we are in the workplace that is broken in itself,
Mhm.
it does add layers of challenges that people of color, women, and other historically marginalized individuals experience. And so to your point, Angela, you just mentioned that often it's people who are not as qualified and they're getting roles versus people who are people of color or women or from other underrepresented backgrounds that are having to do twice as much, three times as much to get, a chance at similar opportunities, not even like the
Yes.
same opportunities sometimes, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
where our work comes in is equipping people of color and women specifically with self-advocacy tools, strategies, and the clear and tangible actions on how to navigate these systems that are often, broken. And there's many steps that need to happen for these corporations and society as a whole to get it together and make this
Right.
equitable environment for all.
So when you mentioned self-advocacy, I think I know one of the other things that I read in your media kit that you helped with or you discussed was ageism and how that plays a factor in it. And I think that sometimes for a lot of women, particularly women of color, like you said, who might even be challenged with self-advocacy, you couple that with their fear of being self advocates because of their age. You think if you say too much, or if you do this, or you write a letter, or you send an email, that's just going to be more of a reason for somebody to try to come after you or to continue to put their foot on your neck. So it's a really difficult balance that I think that a lot of people have to deal with. So, how many of these people that you help with when you're dealing with underrepresented individuals, how many of these are older women who are suffering from ageism or age discrimination in the workplace?
I have worked with everybody from, new graduates entering the workforce all the way to the C-suite. And so I see a variation of ages across the board.
Mhm.
And, what is beautiful in the work that I get to do is, it's a mixed group of people that I'm working with kind of all at once. And so when we have conversations about ageism or about the experience as a person of color, as a Black individual, or as a woman, there are people that are outside of the demographic that is hearing this conversation, hearing me support them through these specifics. So organically, it's kind of creating more awareness that I feel isn't feeling like it's shoved down their throat. Like most organizations, for example, when they look at DEI or these other programs to create more diverse and equitable workplaces, sometimes that can feel forced. But in
Yeah.
the environments that I'm working in, it's more of an organic conversation where people are able to hear the dialogue, hear the challenges specific to each core group, and then understand through that how to support one another. So, yes, we're talking about the challenges in the workplace. There's so many that exist. We'd be here all day for
Yes.
talking about it.
Yes.
But at the same time, we're offering those direct solutions to create productive and thriving workforces. And I think that's what's helping us stand apart from other learning and development firms out there.
Well, it sounds like you have definitely carved out a very interesting niche for yourself. So you consulted with Fortune 50 companies and you have tools and strategies impacted these larger organizations' approach to diversity and inclusion. So how has that happened? How have your tools and strategies helped these companies particularly?
So what we offer is programs, workshops, offsites. We curate the experience in tandem with organizations that we partner with, but it
Yes.
depends on corporation to corporation. Some companies are really hyper focused on, their entire underrepresented population. Some are focused on, their Black employees. Some are focused on their women. And so we're able to come in and offer the programs and workshops and trainings that really are driving towards the goal that each corporation is looking to meet. So it really depends, Angela. What we know from the last year, I mean, when we think about talent development and, especially for underrepresented folks, in 2020, it was commitments from all corporations across the board. We want to do XYZ. It's all over their website, a lot
Right.
of around DEI. And what we've seen across the last year and a half is what people are calling like the decline or the death of DEI. And I will tell you, I don't believe in that because I work with organizations today who are even more passionate than they've ever been before, still doing the work. I think there's a
Mhm.
little bit of a reset happening, but there are so many organizations that are really committed to helping their employees across all different backgrounds thrive and giving them the resources that they need to be productive in the workplace, but also retain them, right? They want to make sure that they are recruiting the right talent, but then keeping them in the doors when they get there. And so there's a lot of great organizations still focused on the right type of work here.
Well, that's refreshing and very good to hear. So, you are also the author of Thriving Color, which offers a roadmap for underrepresented professionals to advocate for themselves in the workplace. What are three main ways that you say that people can comfortably advocate for themselves? What are three ways that you would say?
The first is knowing your brand. So we often think about professional brand, but a lot of individuals don't know what that means. If I can offer some insight, you should know your culture contributors, which is what makes you different from your peers, your lived experiences and what helps you thrive in the workplace, your
Mhm.
interests, your strengths and skills. So if you know that for yourself, well, then you can own that narrative and share that narrative with leaders and decision makers who can advocate on behalf of you. You have to know your own worth before you can get others to buy into it and then scale that. So then the second piece is also having effective sponsors. There's a lot of conversations around mentors, which I talk about in the book, but I really hone in on the concept of sponsors because these are individuals that are responsible for championing you for opportunities versus you just simply learning from them. And then the
Mhm.
last piece is knowing how to negotiate effectively. So I talk about this in depth in Thrive in Color. But when we think about negotiation, we often think about salary or kind of monetary perks and incentives. But it goes beyond that. Negotiation is being able to advocate for your work-life balance needs, your
Right.
needs, maybe a parent in the workforce,
Yes.
or whatever that looks like for you. You should be able to negotiate what will help you operate more effectively. And so, self-advocacy encompasses so much, and we break it
Yes.
down entirely in the book. But I think if you can nail your professional brand, having the right network of advocates, and being a really effective negotiator, you're in good shape.
You're in good shape for that, huh? So you emphasize the importance of a personal brand. I know you mentioned that in your answer before. What advice would you give to someone who is just starting out and trying to define what their brand is? How would they do that?
I think, it's an interesting workforce right now, with kind of Gen Z coming into the play and having just a different perspective in how they operate versus people who are tenured and have been in the workforce for 40, 50
Oh
years
my
maybe.
gosh, I know all about that.
There's a little bit of a shift
I work with
happening.
a bunch of young people and they think totally different. I mean, they think they're supposed to start off making $100,000 a year.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but what my feedback would be to anyone entering the workforce, maybe graduating, entering the workforce, is to be a sponge, to be nimble, and to not only be willing to learn, but be willing to contribute your perspective as well. There's a lot that newer professionals and Gen Z has in terms of knowledge, especially when it comes to tech or media, and these things are kind of hard to
Mhm,
grasp for even people like me who are kind of in that middle. So be
mhm.
willing to learn the job, be willing to put the time and effort in, and show that you belong there, you have a space there, but also be open to sharing your perspective, and kind of marrying business goals, team goals, to what you can contribute. So I often hear, I'm new in the workforce, so what do I really have to contribute? You have a lot to contribute, you have a lot of knowledge,
Yes.
and that's why you're in that specific role. So lean into that and be confident, even if you are entering the workforce for the first time.
Yeah. So as I said before, I work with a lot of younger people, and you're right, they are good at the tech stuff and the social media stuff, but there is nothing that takes the place of experience itself. And it just amazes me how they think that they should, graduate from college and just come out the door making $100,000, haven't paid any dues, haven't done anything, haven't done any of the grunt work that you have to do to kind of get yourself to the level where you are. So that's a really interesting balance. And I was really interested in having this conversation because I know my friends and I, because I'm a part of that older generation, I'm 59, so I'm in that generation where I got a boatload of experience. I mean,
Yeah.
just tons. I got experience just oozing out of me, but it, people like me and some of my friends and my colleagues who are in that age range, we're all finding it really difficult when you try to transition or apply for something. You apply for a job, you never hear anything back. You apply for stuff you know that you are seriously qualified for, and your resume just goes out into the ether somewhere. What happens with that? Do you have any word on what happens, or why, or how companies are able to discriminate from you just from applying for a job?
Well, there's several, this is a very layered conversation. I'm going to speak to what I'm seeing currently given the market today, and it just being a challenge for hiring in general. But most organizations, when they are vetting resumes or vetting experiences, you're going through an applicant tracking system, meaning that there's already keywords in the back end that this company has placed. So now if you're submitting your resume and maybe a certain percentage of, those words are not listed, or they're not listed at all, your resume is immediately rejected, right? Gone are the days of HR sifting through resumes and reading through things. There's this background tech happening. And so you have to be really strategic with the words you're using, not only on your resume, but your LinkedIn as well, because that tracking system still exists on LinkedIn, and 80% of recruiters are looking at LinkedIn profiles before making hiring decisions. So you have to be really strategic. A couple of things you can do is look at the job description for the roles that you're looking to be hired for, and pull a few of them, maybe 7 to 10, and highlight what are those key words that are coming up? What are those key skills that are necessary for these roles? And make sure that that exact terminology or those exact words are on your LinkedIn profile and your resume. So when you're going through the applicant tracking system, it's not rejecting your resume right away. But I will say this is for anybody that's in the market, have grace with yourself in this season because what you're seeing right now is a lot of organizations, there's a lot of job requisitions up. It looks like they're hiring, but what they're actually doing is prospecting for the future, right? So they might be hiring right
Mm,
now, but they want to make sure that when they are, you're in the pipeline. And so if you're
I
not hearing anything,
see.
you're like, but I'm qualified and I saw the recruiter looking at my LinkedIn profile and I
Yeah.
promise you it's not you. They are likely filling the pipeline for future. Or, competition is just really heavy given the market and everyone trying to secure roles right now. So just have extra grace for yourself in the season. I promise you it's going to get better.
I sure hope you're right. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's definitely been daunting, but that was definitely a question I wanted to ask. And you have given so much wonderful information this morning. And I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning. Devika Brij, CEO of Bridge the Gap, and the author of what is it, Thrive for Success?
Thrive in color.
Thrive in Color. I'm sorry, Thrive, giving you a whole new book name.
But you will
Thrive
thrive
in
in
Color.
successful and get a lot of successful tips.
Yeah.
So keep on to something.
But thriving in color is important. And that's a really great name for it too, especially for, what we're talking about, because that's where a lot of people struggle. And I think that I don't know, maybe I'm just being pessimistic. I think that it gets worse before it gets better, for a lot of us, especially with the way that things are changing now and the way society is changing now. I think it's going to make it a lot harder. So it's going to be even more difficult to thrive in color. So
Well, I
we'll
will
be
say this
needing, you
last.
might need to make a workbook with your book.
There is a workbook, actually.
Oh,
Yeah,
there is? Oh,
there's a
cool.
free downloadable workbook that comes with
Okay.
the book. So the link is in the book. You can go in and actually take action on what I'm teaching you. But I will say this last piece, Angela. There's always going to be challenges. What we've seen in the last few weeks is with the US elections as well as
Yes.
things don't go our way sometimes if we're leaning one way, right? We can't control
Right.
those things. What we can control is the way that we continue to show up. What we can control is practicing self-governance. And what we can control is showing up in the most powerful way possible. And if things are still not working out in the way that it should for you, I have empowered you with how to pivot in a way that protects your brand as well. So yes, the book is for people of color, women, underrepresented individuals. I'll meet you with where you're at, right? But also I encourage if you're listening to this and you're not a person of color, still read the book because I promise you're going to get insights on how to become a more effective leader and a peer ally and a supporter of those who are underrepresented around you.
That is some really good information. I have thoroughly enjoyed speaking with you this morning, and I love the information that you're sharing. And I love this niche that you've carved out for yourself because this is a very needed space. So we need this space and need more people like you to help us and to share this information. We didn't know that they were stockpiling resumes for the future when they were posting jobs, and you were not hearing anything. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, Devika Brij. I have enjoyed talking to you this morning on WALK. Do you have any parting words that you'd like to leave with us? How can we get your book? Tell us that.
Yeah, so you can pick up the book wherever you typically purchase your books, Amazon, Barnes Nobles, if you're in Canada, Indigo. But you can look at all the major retailers that carries Thrive in Color at devikabrij.com/Thrive in Color.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Devika Brij. I have enjoyed talking with you this morning.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate the conversation.
Absolutely.